Some houses don't become haunted. They're built as boundaries, places where something waits, patiently, year after year. Tonight, you'll hear true-feeling Christmas stories where decorations weren't festive, bells weren't celebratory, and Christmas night was the only time something was allowed inside. These aren't campfire tales. These are stories people never talk about, because surviving them doesn't mean you escaped. Turn off the lights, lock your doors, and whatever you do, don't assume Christmas means safety. Story 1. The Last Carol the Radio Played. People always talk about how Christmas feels quieter at night. They never mention that sometimes it feels like something is listening. I was working overnights the winter this happened. Graveyard shift at a regional dispatch center in northern Minnesota. Not 911 exactly. We handled highway assistance, weather reroutes, stranded motorists. The kind of calls that come in when it's too late, too cold, and too empty for anyone else to notice. Christmas Eve was supposed to be dead. It usually was. Most people were home, roads empty, snow packed down hard enough that even semis drove careful. I remember clocking in at 11:47 p.m., nodding to Lisa on her way out, and joking that if anyone called tonight, it'd be Santa needing a tow. She didn't laugh. She just said, "If the radio starts acting weird, unplug it." I thought she was messing with me. She wasn't. By midnight, the building felt hollow. Fluorescent lights hummed. Heat vents clicked on and off. Outside, the parking lot was buried under fresh snow, untouched except for my tire tracks. No wind, no traffic noise. Just stillness, the kind that makes you notice your own breathing. I poured stale coffee and sat at my console. That's when the radio came on. Not a call. Music. An old Christmas carol, thin and warbled like it was being played from a cassette left in a hot car. I recognized it immediately. "O come, Emmanuel." I frowned. Our radios didn't play music. They only activated when a call patched through or when emergency broadcasts came in. I checked the board. No incoming lines, no alerts. The song cut out mid-verse. Then the radio crackled, and someone breathed into it. Not spoke. Breathed. Slow. Close. Like their mouth was right against the mic. "Hello?" I said, feeling stupid as soon as the word left my mouth. Static answered. Then a man's voice came through, shaky, strained, layered with interference. Is this road assistance?" "Yes," I said, straightening in my chair. Training kicked in automatically. "Sir, can you tell me your location?" There was a pause. Then he said, "I don't know." That happens sometimes. Disoriented drivers. Cold does that. "Okay," I said calmly. "Do you see any mile markers? Signs? Landmarks?" Another pause. Then quietly, "There's a church." My pen stopped moving. "A church?" I repeated. "Yes," he said. "Small. White. Christmas lights on the roof. They're still on." That didn't sit right. Most rural churches shut everything down after Christmas Eve service, and if he was close enough to see lights clearly, he shouldn't be lost. "What road are you on?" I asked. "I don't know that either," he said. "But I've driven past this place before, just not like this." "Like what?" I asked. He swallowed audibly. "Like it's waiting." I felt a chill crawl up my arms. "Sir," I said, forcing steadiness into my voice, "are you alone?" "Yes." Another breath. "Very alone." I pulled up the GPS trace for his signal. Nothing populated, no pings, no triangulation. It was like the call existed without an origin. "Can you describe the church?" I asked, buying time. "It's old," he said. "Wood siding, steeples crooked. There's a nativity scene out front, but what?" I asked. "The baby's missing." I didn't respond right away. He kept going. "Mary and Joseph are there. Animals, too. But the manger's empty, like someone took him out. A soft, uneasy laugh escaped him. Guess they ran out of time. The radio hissed. Then the carol came back on. Same song, same warped tape sound, playing behind his breathing. Sir, I said sharply, I need you to stay with me. Are you in danger? Yes, he said immediately. No hesitation. From what? I asked. Another pause. Then he whispered, from whatever keeps turning the lights back on. My skin prickled. What lights? I asked. The church, he said. Every time I look away, they go dark. And when I look back, they're on again, I finished. Yes. I heard something in the background then, not wind, footsteps, crunching snow, slow, measured, approaching. Sir, I said, my heart rate climbing, get back in your vehicle if you're not already. Lock the doors. I am in my vehicle, he said. The footsteps stopped. I think it knows that. The radio popped loudly, making me flinch. Who is it? I asked. Silence. Then, the one singing. The carol distorted. Notes stretched too long, pitched too low. I muted the radio instinctively. The music stopped. The line stayed open. I unmuted. The man was breathing fast now. You shouldn't have done that, he said. Done what? I asked. Turned it off, he said. It doesn't like quiet. The footsteps started again, closer this time. I tried one last time to trace the call. Nothing. Sir, I said urgently, I'm dispatching a unit to your area. You don't know where I am, he said gently. That's okay, I lied. Just stay with me. He laughed softly. I already tried that, he said. The radio crackled. Another voice cut in. Not his. Clear, calm, right into my ear. Thank you for keeping him busy. My blood ran cold. Who is this? I demanded. No answer. Just the sound of a car door opening, then screaming. Short, choked, cut off abruptly. Silence swallowed the line. The carol played one last time. Then the radio went dead. I sat there shaking, staring at the console. No follow-up call ever came in, no missing person report that matched, no accident logged, nothing. The next morning when Lisa came in, I told her everything. She didn't look surprised. She just nodded slowly. Did he mention the church lights? She asked. Yes, I whispered. And the baby missing? She continued. Yes. She exhaled. They always do. I quit that job in January. But every Christmas Eve, around midnight, my phone radio app glitches. And for a few seconds, I hear a carol and breathing, waiting for someone to answer. And that's where this story ends. Not with answers, but with someone still living in the aftermath. If this happened near you, if this felt familiar in a way you didn't expect, let me know where you're listening from. City, state, country. Because these stories don't stay in one place. Story 2. We never found who rang the bell. I used to volunteer on Christmas nights because it felt better than sitting alone. That's the honest reason. My parents were gone, my sister lived 3 states away, and my apartment felt too quiet once the sun went down. So, for a few years, I helped at St. Andrew's, a small stone church tucked just off a residential road in upstate New York. Nothing fancy. Old building, drafty hallways, one bell tower that hadn't been automated because the town insisted it be rung by hand for tradition. That bell was my job. Christmas Eve service ended at 11:30 p.m. Families filtered out in scarves and wool coats, kids half asleep, snow crunching under their boots. The pastor locked the front doors, thanked me, and left with the last of the choir. I stayed behind. At exactly midnight, I was supposed to ring the bell 12 times. That was it. Simple. The first year, nothing happened. The second year, something did. And by the third year, I stopped volunteering. The bell tower wasn't hard to reach, but it felt isolated. Narrow wooden stairs spiraled up inside the stone wall, each step worn slightly hollow from decades of use. There were no lights inside the tower, just a pull chain and a small window looking out over the snow-covered cemetery behind the church. I climbed up a few minutes early to warm my hands. That's when I heard footsteps below me. I assumed it was the pastor coming back for something he forgot. "Hello?" I called down. No answer. The footsteps stopped. I shrugged it off. Old buildings make noise. At midnight, I pulled the chain. The bell rang once, deep, heavy. The sound rolled out across the town, echoing against houses and trees. I counted in my head. 2, 3. By the fifth ring, I noticed something strange. The bell wasn't slowing. Normally, the pull had resistance. You could feel the weight of it settling back between rings. This time, it felt eager, like it wanted to keep going. I finished the 12th ring and let go. The bell rang again. Once. On its own. I froze. The chain twitched slightly in my hand. Then it went still. I waited. Nothing else happened. I told myself it was momentum. Physics. Cold metal expanding and contracting. I went home. The second year I wasn't so lucky. Same routine. Same empty church. Same snow-covered cemetery glowing faintly under moonlight. This time, I knew someone else was in the building. I heard humming while I climbed the stairs. Low. Off-key. A Christmas hymn I couldn't quite place. It stopped the moment I reached the top. "Hello?" I called again. Silence. I rang the bell. 1, 2. By ring 6, I felt it again. That unnatural smoothness, like the bell was moving without effort. At ring 9, the humming came back. Below me, right under the tower. I stopped ringing. The bell rang anyway. Once. Twice. 3 times. I dropped the chain and backed against the stone wall, heart slamming against my ribs. The humming grew louder, closer. Then a voice joined it. A woman's voice, soft, gentle, singing a lullaby. Not a Christmas song, something slower, older. The kind of song meant for someone half asleep. I couldn't see her. I could hear her walking. Slow steps on stone, circling the base of the tower, looking for the stairs. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The singing stopped. Then she spoke. "You can stop now," she said pleasantly. I bit my hand to keep from making a sound. "I already rang it," she continued. "You don't need to hide." I waited. Minutes passed. Finally, footsteps moved away. I stayed up there until sunrise. The third year, I almost didn't go back. Something pulled me there anyway. Call it obligation. Call it curiosity. Call it stupidity. This time, I told the pastor about the humming. He laughed awkwardly. "Old pipes," he said, "or maybe someone outside." I didn't believe him. At 11:55 p.m., I climbed the tower. The cemetery was different this time. Someone had added lights. Small white candles placed carefully on a handful of graves. Not fresh ones. Old headstones. Worn names. No snow disturbed around them. As if they'd appeared already lit. My phone buzzed. No signal. No notification. Just vibration. Midnight hit. I didn't touch the chain. The bell rang anyway. Once. Twice. I stared at it. The chain lifted slightly on its own. I backed away. From below, the woman's voice echoed upward. "You're late." The stairs creaked. Someone was climbing. Fast. Not walking, running. I panicked and grabbed the chain, ringing the bell over and over. The sound filled the tower, deafening. The steps stopped. The voice turned sharp. "Stop!" I let go. Silence slammed down. Then a whisper directly beneath me. "You rang it for them." My phone vibrated again. This time a message appeared. "Missed call. Unknown." I bolted. I don't remember getting down the stairs. I don't remember unlocking the door. I remember running until my lungs burned. The next morning, the pastor called. The bell rope was gone, cleanly cut. No sign of forced entry, no footprints. But in the cemetery, one new candle burned low on a fresh grave. My name was carved into the temporary marker. I moved 2 weeks later. Every Christmas since, at exactly midnight. I hear a bell in the distance, ringing without hands, counting without me. And that's where this story ends. Not with answers, but with someone still living in the aftermath. If this happened near you, if this felt familiar in a way you didn't expect, let me know where you're listening from, city, state, country, because these stories don't stay in one place. Story 3. Something kept resetting the Christmas decorations. I live alone at the end of a county road that barely qualifies as one. There are no streetlights out here, no sidewalks, just trees, ditches, and a few scattered houses spaced far enough apart that you don't really feel like you have neighbors. I moved there because it was cheap. I stayed because I liked the quiet. That changed 3 winters ago, right before Christmas. It started with the decorations. I put them up on December 10th, like I always do. Nothing elaborate, just white string lights along the porch railing, a plastic wreath on the front door, and a small illuminated reindeer near the steps. I remember finishing just as it got dark. The lights looked good against the snow, familiar, comforting. The next morning, the wreath was gone. Not fallen, gone. I checked the yard, the ditch, the woods across the road. Nothing. I assumed someone stole it. Teenagers, maybe. It annoyed me, but I didn't dwell on it. That night, I replaced it. The following morning, the wreath was back, hanging perfectly straight on the door. The bow was tied differently, tighter. I stood there longer than I should have. My first thought wasn't fear. It was confusion. I knew how I tied it. That wasn't it. I checked my doorbell camera. No footage. Nothing happened. Just nothing recorded between 1:12 a.m. and 4:47 a.m. No error message. No corruption. Just missing time. I unplugged the camera and went to work. The next night, the lights were off when I got home. Not burned out, unplugged. The extension cord lay coiled neatly beside the outlet, looped in a way I didn't recognize. That's when I locked every door. I started checking windows before bed. Nothing else happened for 3 days. Then the reindeer moved. I noticed it when I left for work. It had been turned to face the road, straight on. Its plastic eyes reflected my headlights in a way that felt intentional. I rotated it back before leaving. That night, it faced the house, pointed directly at my front door. I stopped touching the decorations after that. I told myself if something wanted them arranged a certain way, I'd let it. That's how people start compromising with fear. On December 18th, I heard footsteps on the porch. Slow, heavy, measured. I sat on the couch with the TV muted, lights off, heart pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. The steps stopped at the door. I waited for a knock. Instead, I heard breathing. Right on the other side, not labored, not aggressive, curious, like someone standing too close to a microphone. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You put them up wrong." I didn't move. Another text followed. I fixed it. I called the police. They came an hour later, walked the property, found nothing. One officer suggested I turn off the decorations if they're attracting attention. I didn't argue. That night, I unplugged everything and brought it inside. The porch stayed dark. The next morning, the lights were back up, plugged in, wreath hung, reindeer positioned, perfect. I found muddy footprints leading from the tree line to the porch. They stopped at the door. Didn't leave. I didn't sleep that night. On December 21st, the carolers started. One voice, outside, just beyond the porch light, singing softly, off-key, repeating the same line over and over. Joy to the world, never finishing the verse. I shouted through the door, told them to leave. The singing stopped. Then came the knocking. Not on the door, on the walls, moving, like something circling the house. That's when I noticed something worse. The decorations weren't festive anymore. They were directional. Lights framing the windows, wreath centered like a marker. The reindeer pointed inward, toward me. On Christmas Eve, I packed a bag. I planned to leave, stay at a motel. As I opened the door, I froze. The wreath was gone. In its place hung a handwritten tag, brown paper, red string. It read, "Tomorrow is for you." I spent Christmas Eve locked in my bedroom with a chair under the handle. At midnight, the house went silent. No wind, no creaks. Then the lights came on. Inside. Every bulb I'd packed away now glowed from the living room. I heard footsteps again. This time inside the house. Slow, careful, learning. A voice spoke from the hallway, not loud, not threatening, satisfied. "You finally let me finish." I don't remember leaving. I remember sunlight, police lights, my front door standing open. The decorations were gone, all of them. The officers said I'd been found walking barefoot down the road, repeating the same sentence over and over. I didn't hang them. I just lived inside them. I moved. I don't decorate anymore, but every Christmas morning, I find pine needles by my door and faint footprints that stop just short of crossing the threshold. Story 4. Christmas was the only night it was allowed inside. I never believed in anything supernatural. I didn't grow up with ghost stories or warnings about cursed places. My parents were practical people. Problems had explanations. Fear was usually just ignorance or exhaustion wearing a mask. That belief held strong well into adulthood. Until the winter my father died. He passed on December 3rd. Heart attack. No pain, they said. One moment he was standing in the kitchen making coffee. The next he was on the floor, gone before the paramedics arrived. What they didn't tell you about sudden deaths is how unfinished everything feels afterward. Conversations cut mid-sentence. Plans that still exist in your head, even though the person attached to them doesn't anymore. My mother couldn't stay in the house. She lasted 3 nights. On the 4th morning, she called me crying, said she kept hearing him walking the hallway at night. Not in a comforting way. Not like memory. Like someone checking rooms. She asked me to take the house. Just for the winter, she said. Until spring. The house sat at the edge of a tree line in northern Minnesota, far enough from town that the nights felt deeper, heavier. No neighbors close enough to see your lights. No traffic noise. Just wind and trees and the occasional crack of ice shifting. It had been in our family for generations. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. From the moment I stepped inside alone, the house felt alert. Not hostile. Aware. Like it had been waiting to see who would come back. The first few days were quiet. I unpacked slowly, slept with the TV on, kept lights burning longer than necessary. I chalked every creak up to grief. But routines are fragile things. Once they break, everything else follows. The first night I heard footsteps was December 7th. They came from the hallway around 2 a.m. Slow, even, measured, not pacing, not wandering, just passing. I lay there listening, waiting for them to stop at my door. They didn't. They continued past it, toward the living room. I told myself it was the house settling. Old wood. Temperature shift. That explanation didn't hold the next night. Same time, same sound. This time the steps paused outside my door, not right at it. A foot or two away, close enough that I could imagine someone standing there, listening to my breathing. After a long minute, the steps moved on. I didn't sleep after that. I avoided the basement entirely. Something about the door bothered me. It was always closed growing up, always locked during winter. My father used to say the cold traveled up from there. On December 10th, I noticed the smell. Pine. Fresh pine. Not the dusty scent of stored decorations. The sharp, living smell of a tree that had been cut recently. It filled the living room. I froze at the bottom of the stairs. The house was decorated. Not halfway. Not messily. Fully. A tall Christmas tree stood in the corner by the window, lights glowing softly. Ornaments hung evenly. Old glass ones, handmade ones I recognized from childhood, even the broken angel topper my father had refused to throw away. Stockings lined the fireplace. 5 of them. Mine, my mother's, my father's, and 2 smaller ones I didn't recognize. Wrapped gifts sat beneath the tree. No tags, just brown paper and twine. I stood there shaking, trying to piece together how this could have happened. I checked the doors, locked, windows, unbroken, no footprints in the snow outside. I called my mother. She went quiet when I described the decorations. Then she asked me something that made my stomach drop. "Did you light the candles too?" I hadn't noticed them. There were candles on every windowsill, unlit, but new. My hands were numb when I took the decorations down. I didn't throw them away. That felt wrong. Instead, I boxed everything carefully and carried it to the garage. That night, the footsteps came earlier. 1:12 a.m. They didn't stop outside my room this time. They turned toward the basement door. The handle rattled softly. Once, then again. I didn't move. On December 12th, the decorations returned. Not all at once, piece by piece, the wreath first, then the tree, then the gifts. Each time I removed something, it came back arranged slightly differently. Improved, more deliberate, more intentional, as if correcting mistakes. I started sleeping with my bedroom door locked. That didn't help. On December 14th, I woke to a stocking hanging from the foot of my bed. Red felt. My name stitched in white thread. The stitching style was unmistakable. My father used to sew like that. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat there staring until my legs went numb. That morning, I finally confronted my mother. She didn't deny anything. She didn't sound surprised. She just sounded tired. "He promised he'd handle it," she said quietly. I asked her what it was. There was a long pause. Then she said the words that changed everything. "Christmas is the only night it's allowed inside." After my mother said those words, neither of us spoke for a long time. The silence on the line wasn't empty. It felt loaded, like something listening between us. "Inside where?" I finally asked. "The house," she replied. "The land. Us." I told her to explain. She said she never wanted me to know, that my father insisted I shouldn't, that knowledge made it harder to live with. Then she told me everything. The house had never been a blessing. It was a boundary. Long before it belonged to my grandparents, before the town existed, the land had been used for something else, something seasonal, something tied to winter, darkness, and invitation. Whatever lived beyond the trees couldn't cross freely. It needed permission, and permission had a price. Every Christmas night, after midnight, the house had to be prepared, decorated, lit. open in spirit but sealed in rule. Gifts placed not as offerings, but acknowledgments. A ritual that wasn't about welcoming. It was about containment. My father learned it from his father. My grandfather learned it from his. The rules weren't written anywhere. They were passed down in pieces. Corrections made when mistakes happened. The ritual had to be done by someone who belonged to the house. Blood mattered, intention mattered more, and if it wasn't done, my mother stopped there. I already knew. That night, the house changed. It wasn't subtle. The air felt thicker, heavier, like humidity before a storm. The silence wasn't quiet anymore. It pressed inward. Sounds felt muffled, swallowed before they could echo. The footsteps returned. Not walking now, pacing, from room to room, testing. I locked myself in the bedroom, phone clutched in my hand, staring at the door handle as if it might turn on its own. At 11:40 p.m., the power went out. Total darkness. No hum of electricity, no distant lights from town. Just blackness and the faint glow of moonlight through the curtains. Then the decorations turned on. Every light, every candle. The house bloomed with soft gold and red glow like it was breathing warmth into the cold. I didn't remember putting them up, but they were perfect. The tree looked taller than before. The ornaments weren't just familiar now. Some were impossibly old, cracked and darkened, like they'd survived fires and wars. The gifts were stacked higher, more of them, each wrapped neatly, each labeled now. Not with my name, with roles. The keeper, the witness, the offering. My stomach dropped. A knock echoed through the house, not at the door, from the wall behind me. Slow, firm, patient. Then the voice spoke, not through sound, through recognition. It knew me. It knew my father. It knew every Christmas I'd ever lived in that house. "You are late," it said. The ritual wasn't written down, but the house remembered. The lights dimmed in sequence, guiding me. Living room, fireplace, tree. I didn't want to move. My body moved anyway. I knelt in front of the fireplace. My hands shook as I opened the first gift. Inside was an old photo. My father as a young man standing in the living room on Christmas night, alone. The second gift held a knife, not ceremonial, practical, worn smooth by years of use. The third gift was heavier. When I opened it, I started crying. It was my father's stocking. Inside was a folded note written in his handwriting. "I'm sorry. I thought I had more time. It learns." The temperature dropped. Frost crept along the window edges. The footsteps stopped. The presence filled the room. It didn't have a shape. It didn't need one. It existed in pressure, in expectation, in the way the shadows leaned inward. "This house remembers," it said. "This house must be taught." The ritual wasn't about sacrifice. It was about substitution. Every year my father gave it something small, blood, memory, time, pain, just enough to keep it satisfied, just enough to keep it from choosing for itself. This year there was no one to bargain, so it was choosing. The knife felt warm in my hand. The fire crackled, too loud. The lights flickered like blinking eyes. I understood then why my mother couldn't stay, why my father never slept well in December, why Christmas always felt tense in that house, even when I was a child. The presence leaned closer. "You belong to this place now." I did the ritual wrong. I rushed, I panicked. I tried to offer too little. The house shook. The tree lights burst one by one. The windows rattled violently. From outside, shapes gathered at the edge of the trees, watching, waiting. The presence withdrew slightly, not satisfied but restrained. "Next year," it promised, Morning came suddenly, too suddenly. Sunlight cut through the windows. The decorations were gone. Every single one. No tree, no lights, no gifts. Only blood on my hands and pine needles on the floor. The snow outside was melted in a perfect circle around the house. Footprints surrounded it. None crossed the threshold. I left that morning, didn't pack, didn't lock the door. I sold the house in the spring, didn't tell the buyers the truth, just said it was old, just said it creaked. But every Christmas since, I wake up to the smell of pine, to a wrapped gift sitting outside my door, and a feeling that something is counting the days, waiting for permission, waiting for me. And that's where this story ends. Not with answers, but with someone still living in the aftermath. If this happened near you, if this felt familiar in a way you didn't expect, let me know where you're listening from. City, state, country, because these stories don't stay in one place. Story 5. The Christmas train that wasn't on any schedule. There are towns in America that don't make sense anymore. They show up on maps, sure. They've got a post office, a diner, maybe a Dollar General, but if you stop there long enough, you get the feeling they were supposed to disappear, and somehow didn't get the memo. Gravesend, Montana was one of those places. I only ended up there because of the snow. I was driving east on Route 2, trying to beat a winter storm that everybody on the radio was already calling historic. Christmas Eve. Typical luck. I should have stayed put in Kalispell, but I was stubborn and tired of cheap motels that smelled like bleach and regret. The snow came down hard and fast. Visibility dropped to nothing. My headlights felt useless, like I was shining them into a wall. Then the road vanished. Not metaphorically, literally. 1 second I was on asphalt, the next I was rolling to a stop in front of a barricade half buried in snow. A crooked sign hung off it, letters barely readable under ice. Road closed. No winter maintenance. Behind it, darkness swallowed everything. I checked my phone. No signal. Not even that fake SOS-only tease. That's when I saw the glow. Warm yellow light in the distance. Maybe a mile off the road. Steady. Human. I weighed my options. Sit in my car and hope the storm didn't bury me alive, or walk toward whatever town still had electricity when everything else had shut down. I grabbed my coat and started walking. Gravesend looked like a postcard somebody had left out in the rain. Snow-covered buildings leaned toward each other like they were whispering secrets. Christmas lights hung from lampposts, but most of them were off. A few flickered weakly, struggling. The place was quiet. Too quiet. No engines, no footsteps, no wind even. Just the soft crunch of my boots. I passed a diner with a darkened interior. A motel with a no vacancy sign lit up, but no cars in the lot. A church with its doors slightly open, warm light spilling out. But no sound of voices or singing. I finally found life at the gas station. Inside were 3 people. An older man behind the counter, a woman sitting on a stool with her hands wrapped around a coffee cup, and a kid maybe 19 or 20, pacing like he'd had too much caffeine and not enough sleep. They all turned to look at me at the same time. You ever walk into a room and feel like you just interrupted something important? Yeah, that. Road's closed, the old man said flatly. I noticed, I replied. Storm caught me off guard. Any chance there's a place to stay? The woman laughed, but there was no humor in it. Not tonight. The kid stopped pacing. You don't want to stay. I thought he was messing with me. I almost smiled. Almost. What's going on? I asked. It's Christmas Eve. You guys expecting some kind of thing? The old man sighed and leaned forward on the counter. His eyes were bloodshot, tired in a way sleep wouldn't fix. You hear a train yet? I frowned. No. Why? He looked at the woman. She looked at the kid. The kid swallowed hard. "Then you've still got time," the woman said. "Time for what?" The old man didn't answer. He just reached under the counter and pulled out a laminated paper, slid it toward me. It was a schedule, or at least it looked like one, black and white, simple. One column, one entry. December 24th, 11:47 p.m. No destination, no train number, no company logo, just a time. "There hasn't been a passenger train through Gravesend since 1989, the old man said quietly. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "Yet," the kid added, "I ended up staying. Not because I wanted to, because by the time we stepped outside, the storm had swallowed the road completely. The barricade I'd passed earlier was gone, buried under snow like it had never existed. They let me take the motel room closest to the station. That should have been my second warning. The first was when I noticed the train tracks. They ran behind the town, half covered in snow. Rusted. Old. No power lines overhead. No signals. No signs of recent use. Still, something about them felt wrong, like they were waiting. Inside the motel room, the heater rattled and clanked like it might give up at any moment. I sat on the bed, boots still on, staring out the window toward the tracks. At 11:30 p.m., the town lights dimmed. Not all at once, one by one, like someone flipping switches down a long hallway. I checked my phone again. Still dead. Then, at 11:44, I heard it. A sound so low and distant, it almost blended into the storm. A horn. Not loud, not dramatic. Just patient. At 11:47 p.m. Exactly. The train arrived. No lights announced it. No rumble warned us. It simply appeared. 1 second the tracks were empty. The next, a black locomotive stood there, idling quietly, steam rising into the cold air like breath. It looked old. Older than it should have been. Metal dull, paint chipped, windows dark. But it was pristine. Not a flake of snow on it. People were already gathering near the platform. That's when I realized something was deeply, terribly wrong. No one looked surprised. They looked resigned. Families stood together bundled in coats, some crying softly, some holding hands like they were afraid of letting go. A few stood alone, staring at the ground. The old man from the gas station caught my eye in the crowd. He gave a slow shake of his head. "Don't get closer." I should have listened. The doors opened. Warm light spilled out onto the snow. Inside, I could see rows of seats, red fabric, clean, empty. A conductor stepped down onto the platform. Tall, thin, face hidden under the brim of his hat. Uniform that looked like it hadn't been updated in decades. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just waited. Then a woman stepped forward. She kissed the forehead of a little boy clinging to her coat, whispered something I couldn't hear, gently pried his fingers loose, and walked onto the train alone. The doors closed behind her. The horn sounded once. The train did not move. More people stepped forward, one by one. Every single person boarded alone. No goodbyes that lasted too long, no resistance, no shouting, like they'd done this before. I grabbed the kid from the gas station by the arm. "What the hell is this?" I hissed. His face was pale, eyes glossy. "Christmas train." "Where does it go?" He shook his head. "Nobody knows." "Then why are they getting on?" "Because if they don't," he whispered, "someone else goes in their place." My stomach dropped. "That's not how trains work." "No," he said. "That's how Gravesend works." The conductor looked straight at me. Even from that distance, I felt it. like being noticed by something that didn't need eyes to see you. He raised one gloved hand, pointed, at me. The kid let go and stepped back like he'd touched fire. The old man shouted, "No, he's not from here!" The conductor tilted his head, slowly. Then he pointed again, this time at the tracks behind me. I turned. Footprints were forming in the snow, fresh, leading toward the train, but not mine. I was standing still. The footsteps stopped right beside me. I felt the presence before I saw it. Cold, heavy, sad. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see who it was. The conductor nodded once. The doors opened. Behind me, something took a step forward. I ran. I don't remember deciding to. My body just moved. I sprinted through the snow, lungs burning, heart slamming against my ribs. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I ran until the storm swallowed everything. When I finally collapsed, gasping, the horn sounded one last time. Then, silence. I woke up alone. The storm was gone. Morning light glinted off untouched snow. No train, no tracks. Just a frozen ditch where they should have been. Gravesend was empty. No people, no cars, no footprints. The motel room key still sat in my pocket. I drove out without seeing another soul. Later, I tried to look Gravesend up. It exists. Population 0. Declared abandoned in 1990. Rail line officially decommissioned in 1989. One local archive mentions a tradition, handwritten in the margins of an old town ledger. Every Christmas Eve, the train comes to collect what the town owes. I don't drive on Christmas anymore, and when I hear a horn in the distance, even one that shouldn't be there, I don't wait to see what arrives. Story 6. Every year, someone didn't make it home for Christmas. The town of Briar Hollow, West Virginia, had a saying nobody put on postcards. Everyone comes home for Christmas. Not everyone leaves. I didn't hear that until it was already too late. I grew up in Briar Hollow. If you blinked while driving through it, you'd miss the whole place. One main road, a grocery store that doubled as a hardware shop, a church that smelled like pine cleaner and old grief, woods everywhere, thick choking woods that climbed the hills and swallowed sound. People leave towns like Briar Hollow the second they can. I did. College, city, real job, real life. I only came back for Christmas because my mom wouldn't stop calling. "It might be your dad's last good year," she said. That kind of sentence works better than guilt ever could. So I drove back on December 23rd, tires crunching over the same roads I'd sworn I'd never see again. The town sign still stood at the edge of the highway. "Welcome to Briar Hollow Est, 1891. Someone had scratched something under it. Count yourselves." I laughed it off. I shouldn't have. The house felt smaller than I remembered. Same creaky floors, same family photos, same weird silence that made it feel like the walls were listening. Mom hugged me too long. Dad smiled, but didn't get up from his chair. "You made it," he said, like he wasn't entirely sure I would. That night, while we ate dinner, I noticed something odd. An empty chair. Not just empty, set. Plate, silverware, napkin folded neatly. "Expecting someone else?" I asked. Mom and Dad exchanged a look. Dad cleared his throat. "We always said it." "For who?" "For whoever doesn't make it home," Mom said softly. I frowned. "What?" Dad waved it off. "Old habit. Don't worry about it." I let it go. That was my second mistake. Later that night, I ran into Evan, my old high school friend, at the gas station. He looked worse, thinner, eyes sunken, like someone who hadn't slept right in years. "You picked a bad Christmas to come back." he said after hugging me. Why? Snowstorm? He shook his head. Roll call year. I stared at him. What are you talking about? He leaned closer, voice dropping. You don't remember? Remember what? Evan laughed, sharp, nervous. Yeah, figures. He glanced around the station like someone might be listening. Come by the church tomorrow night, he said. Midnight service. I'm not really a church guy. Doesn't matter, he said. Everyone shows up. Why? Because if you don't, he swallowed. They count you anyway. Christmas Eve came too fast. The whole town felt tense, like everyone was waiting for something to go wrong. I noticed things. Houses with lights on but no cars outside. Porches decorated but doors never opening. People whispering instead of talking. At dinner, the empty chair was still there. I asked again. Mom finally snapped. Drop it. Dad wouldn't look at me. At 11:30 p.m., church bells rang. One slow chime, then another, then silence. Dad stood up. Time. For what? I asked. Mom grabbed her coat. Midnight service. I'm staying here. Dad stopped, turned slowly. His face was pale. No, he said. You're not. The church was packed. Every single person in Briar Hollow was there, standing shoulder to shoulder. No smiles, no singing, just waiting. At the front stood the pastor, Pastor Lyle, reading from a leather-bound book. It didn't look like a Bible. He cleared his throat. Roll call, he said. My stomach dropped. He started reading names, slowly. Every person answered when their name was called. Here. 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 When someone hesitated too long, the room went cold. I noticed something worse. Every few names, there was silence. Pastor Lyle would pause, then write something in the book, and move on. Evan stood next to me, shaking. What happens if someone's not here? I whispered. He didn't answer. My dad squeezed my shoulder, hard. Then Pastor Lyle reached the end. He closed the book, looked up. There is one missing, he said. The room inhaled as one. Dad's grip tightened. Pastor Lyle looked directly at me. Out-of-towners count too. Mom started crying. No, she whispered. Not again. Pastor Lyle stepped down from the pulpit. When Briar Hollow was founded, he said, the winter took more than it gave. Crops failed, people froze, children starved. He stopped in front of me. So we made a promise. His eyes were dead. One soul, every Christmas, to keep the rest safe. I laughed. This is insane. No one laughed with me. Pastor Lyle opened the book. There are rules, he said. They must be chosen. They must be counted. They must not resist. The lights flickered, and someone screamed, not from the church, from outside. The scream cut off abruptly. Everyone turned toward the doors. Pastor Lyle smiled, thin, relieved. The Hollow has chosen, he said. The doors creaked open. Cold air rushed in. Something stood in the doorway. Tall, wrapped in shadow. Shaped wrong, like it had learned what a person looked like from a bad description. Its eyes were deep pits of darkness. It sniffed the air, slowly. Then it pointed. At Evan. Evan collapsed. No, he sobbed. I stayed every year. Pastor Lyle shook his head. You were late last Christmas. Evan screamed as the thing took him. No blood, no struggle, just gone. The doors slammed shut. Silence. The service ended like nothing happened. People hugged, wished each other Merry Christmas. Evan's name was scratched out of the town records by morning, like he'd never existed. I left at dawn. I didn't say goodbye. I haven't been back since. But every Christmas Eve at exactly midnight, my phone buzzes. Unknown number. One message. Roll call complete. And somewhere in Briar Hollow, another chair is set.